Howdy. Welcome back to Dion Talk. Today, I have the CEO of Hemlane, Dana, here to answer a question I'm hoping with the number of rentals that are on the platform and the number of owners that she's working with, she might actually have a different perspective than I do. What I like to do is watch what's going on in the market with prices, rates, and rents, because you can't look at any one of those metrics and make a decision. You have to figure out how are they all working together. And unlike the crash bros, I'm not trying to figure out what's going to happen in a year or two and make a decision. I'm looking at what is the cash flow going to look like today when I buy a property. So in the last couple of years, there's been a big shift in the market. And one of the most flawed metrics ever is being used to talk about housing. You're going to hear a lot of the crash bros say, housing is unaffordable because the affordability index is the worst it's been in 52 years. Unless we actually consider what's impacting real estate. And since 2020, what we have now, more than at any point in my existence, and I'm about twice your age, Dana, so in this amount of time, we've never had the option to work remotely as much as we do now. So I'm curious, with the over 21,000 units on your platform and over 3,000 owners that operate using Hemlane, how is remote working impacting rentals?
Yeah. There's a couple of things there to unpack. And the first thing is, on the rental side, we haven't seen too much change in rental rates. And here is why. There's a couple of reasons. One is interest rates have increased. And so folks have heard that and have delayed home ownership to some extent, saying, hey, let's wait to see what happens with the market. That has definitely transpired that we've seen. And that's based on renewals that we have in our system and why people are deciding to renew or potentially weighing, hey, if I were to move, what would it be? So that's the first one. And then the second is renting provides optionality. And so I do think there's a lot of people who are a little bit lost of where they want to be. And remote work has put that into your head of, I could be anywhere. Maybe I would move to Hawaii. Maybe I would move to Mexico. And so you do want to continue renting. You're actually not even that worried as a renter about what that rental rate is, to just stay where you are or where that might be close to work in case you need to go back to the office. Those types of decisions that you make. But it does provide that optionality for you to leave. However, unless you are a landlord who's like increasing it by an astronomical amount, it is the concept of moving and packing up all your things, unless there is some sort of life decision that pushes you to it sooner, or a rent increase that pushes you to like think outside the box. We aren't seeing renters as much leave the markets that they've been in. One of the interesting things that hasn't happened, but we're so close to it, which could change and impact rental rates more, is actually self-driving cars. And here is why. I believe renters, especially renters, because it's a younger demographic that are renting before buying a home. There's also people who rent for the rest of their life. But those who are younger and potentially on the track to home ownership, for those, they want to be in cities. They want the hustle and bustle, right? They want to start building their career. And I'm not quite sure how self-driving cars changes that. Because what you hear is, hey, if I could take a car to get to a bar or a restaurant, but it's an experience, right? I get into this car, it serves me a cocktail, there's no driver in it, then you may decide those rental rates may change. You might see cities tank because people are living on the outskirts of cities because they can just take the self-driving car anywhere. And so the reason that I bring that up is, I don't think remote work has made the rental market crash by any means. I also don't think it's like benefited cities of like these huge skyrocket rates. But to your point, Dion, if you do the analysis of today, what am I going to get? And you look at those rental rates, you're not going to see anything drastic of these huge declines in certain markets because folks still like that optionality when they're in them. And it's even more of an incentive to rent versus buy in particular markets.
So what I've seen, and the reason I was able to make my most recent purchase, is with remote work, you have the people who were kind of trapped in the cities because of the work more so than the experience. There's a lot of people like myself who would never want to live in the city, but if that was where the work was, we would put up with it.
Yeah.
So I took the market that I was investing in and I expanded it out about another 30 minutes of travel time, because the rents with remote workers being able to go into the office once or twice a week instead of 5 days a week have moved out. So the rents are being pushed up in those further out markets, but the prices aren't yet, because
Yeah.
those remote workers aren't comfortable buying because they're not sure if their company is going to pull an Elon Musk a year later and say, come back to the office or we're firing you. So if you're
Yeah.
renting on a lease, sure, in a year you can come back and work in the office. But if you purchase and you don't want to become a landlord and have tenants, you're less likely to buy. So I moved out. I found about 11 markets. In 2 of those markets, almost every deal made sense because the local investors there weren't tracking that the rents were going up because of remote work. So much so that my okay looking deal that I purchased is going to end up being a great deal. And still prices haven't caught up yet.
Yeah.
So I agree with you. I don't see rents going down or becoming soft because of remote work, but I do think that there are some markets that weren't attractive to people who needed to be close to their work before that will now have more rental demand because people can live so much further from work.
Yeah, and I also think, I mean, it's such a strong and spot on point. I also know that on the institutional side, institutionals have like Wall Street has a very structured process of how they purchase. And it's like, hey, we're only purchasing in this radius of this city, but it hasn't caught up to like what remote work is. So if you're like just outside of that, you can get better deals from that perspective. So that's spot on.
I think it's why one of my friends, Millennial Mike, is doing so well investing in Gary, Indiana, because it's 45 minutes from Chicago. The remote work thing there is blowing up the rental demand in the market he's investing. And so I think it's a good strategy that people could start to look at is what's a little further out than where normally the commuters would live. Because 1 or 2 days a week is a lot easier than 5 days a week.
Yeah, most definitely.
Awesome. Thank you, Dana. I appreciate it. If somebody wants to reach out with questions, how can they get a hold of you?
Yeah, if you have any questions for me, anything in property management trends, real estate trends, you can reach out to Dana, DANA at Hemlane, HEMLANE.com.
Thank you so much.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Thank you. Until my next video, thanks for coming to my Dion Talk.
We're sorry, the number you have dialed is not in service at this time.